All right, let's get started. Welcome to May Focus Friday. If you don't know me, I'm Walter Bringle, and I've been doing these Focus Fridays for the past 9 years. I'm joined today by Kim Lim and Steven Zerkiv, who are product managers, one for the WebFOCUS client and one for the reporting server. So on the screen, we have our housekeeping. Just remember that this session is being recorded. When you come in, your audio lines are muted. Um, if you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A, or you can also put the question in the chat. The Q&A is a little more official, but you can put it in either place. If you ask a question, we may need some more information from you, so we may ask that you unmute if we do need to get more information. Presentations will be emailed the beginning of next week. And I think that takes care of it. So something's coming up is we have an in-person summit, which is 2 days in August in New York. Registration is open and the agenda is live. And I put the HTTP link at the bottom so you can go there if you have not already registered. And if you haven't, why not? Go ahead and register, get signed up, and hopefully we'll see you there. I think we're all going, right?
Yep, I'll be there.
Okay. Steven, you'll be there too, right?
I was planning to, but they scheduled on my birthday, so
Ah, one of our customers that comes to these things also, it's his birthday during those days. If you sign up, if you can come. Uh, let's see, what else we got going on? I don't have a slide for it, but we have a public sector summit that will be in DC, and it's only for the public sector. That will be in July. And I believe the IBI Summit in New York, we're looking for call for papers. So if you have any good stories of how you used our product and you want to share them, we're interested to know what you got. All right, that's all I have to start us off with. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Steven.
hello everyone. My name is Steven Zerkev, and I'm a product manager for reporting server and data migrator. And today I'll be presenting to you our new feature that's coming up in 9.3.8, and it's integration of data migrator with the data quality tool that we have. And this integration will provide our users, customers, to cleanse data while they're building the data flow. So that's what I'm gonna demo today. And I just want to put a little disclaimer here that the feature is a 9.3.8 feature, and what you see on the screens right now might be or might not be part of 9.3.8. It all depends on our final decision, but it's going to be part of this feature is going to be part of 9.3.8. But the way you looking at it right now might change. Right? We're not taking away the features that you're going to see, but um, we might add some stuff additionally. And the looks and feels might change a little bit. So I think everybody sees my screen, right? Okay.
Yes.
I was doing some. All right. So how the integration works. So you have to have installation of data migrator in DQ. They don't have to run on the same machine, right? As long as they're running in the same network. And we can issue REST calls from one to another. We will be happy and do the cleansing. All right. So how does it work? So first of all, you have to both of the services have to be installed, the reporting server and DQ, as I said. And the second step would be to go and configure the adapters, right? So we have a REST adapters in here. I configured two connections. One connection is the regular connection to DQ. Hold on, let me just show you the properties. And the second connection, the first connection is used for authentication, to get authenticated and get the authorization token. And the second connection is used for the communication by using that connection. The first connection authorization token, and you're passing that. So we're using chained authentication, the second one, and we're passing that authorization token, right? For every call that we make. So after both of these connections are up and running, and you can test those by clicking test, selecting test connection, and we can start. We can start building the data flow, right? First of all, the sources for the data flow could be, the source can be anything, right? It could be a table. It could be any source that supported, source that supported with the within the reporting server could be a source for this data flow and a cleansing process. So we would go, we say new flow. Okay, we go, we drag the source. My source is a comma delimited file where I have customers data. What I'm gonna cleanse today is the emails and the phone numbers, right? So to and the list of the rules that can be applied. So let's first get the. So we have a data cleansing object within which you select your rules and apply those rules to the fields that are within your source. Right. So we selected it, you see, and it shows me on the left the fields within my source. And on the right, there's a drop down, and this all is the drop down have all the rules that DQ has currently. So all this dynamic, right? So we issue the call to DQ to give us the list of all the rules, and the rules are in this drop down. So for the fields that you want to assign the rule, you start working on those. So for example, and for my home email, I will go and I select the rule that will do the cleansing for email, right? So I would say cleanse. No, it's better to say email, right? And cleanse email. And when I selected the rules, there's certain parameters that get passed, right? And their output parameters and certain information that can be selected, how you want this to be, how this rule you want to be applied, right? You at the end of the cleansing, so for example, if the for the selected rule, your email in a certain row failed, right? What do you want to do? Do you want to keep the original value, or you can assign a new value to that field? So for the purpose of this demo, I'm selecting the original value. I want to see the original value, why it failed, right? And also um, the rule when the in a response for this rule we have you can select the tag value, which has um, the explanation why the rule failed, while why the cleansing failed, and the category, right? I would like to select the category, right? Why? Because I can act on the on this failure, right? If the or act on a success, right? So what do I want to do? I would want to filter, for example, records that successfully got cleansed to one table, and the records that failed into different table for the post-processing. All right, so let's select sequence. Okay, so let's go through this quickly. For the emails, I want to do the same thing. We can clean, I mean, currently the list has different rules to clean the emails, social security numbers. These rules are written in Python. If the rules need to be added, so you can go to the queue and you add the rules and they automatically will appear here, right? As long as you specify the input and output parameters for that rule, it should all work. Currently, we only support in this release, in 9.3.8 release, the input, there should be one input parameter, um, right? For example, address right now is not supported because it requires multiple input parameters and multiple output parameters. Gender can also be cleansed, right? So in this demo, we're just cleaning up the emails and phones. Okay, so let's select the phone, the business phone. As before, I want to keep the original value, category, tag category, and the last one is a mobile. Um, okay, touch, okay. So when we say okay, um, when we come to SQL object, we can see hold on, double check. Yeah, account selected. Okay, so now we can do edit here, and we can drag those columns that are we selected to our select to the selected fields. So we drag the emails. Now we're gonna drag the phones over. And on the right side, it actually issues the it's all, as I said, it's all dynamic. So as I drop them into the palette of selected columns, I see the result set, right? So it tells me if the value is valid, and if it was cleansed, it will tell me that as well. So let's see if we have any cleansed. Yeah, you see here the phone number is cleansed. Um, And if it fails, it's also be showing here the different value in tag category, right? So we set up our source, we set up our rules. Okay, so now what we want to do, come on. What we want to do is we want to add the target, right? So we can say a new target or existing target. I'm saying a new target. I'm selecting a new target. If it's an existing target, besides doing the cleansing, you also can do your transformations, the data migrated transformations that are available for you. And what I also did, which is not part of this, currently it's part of the product, we added the filter to act on the value of the tag category to split the records. But my release of the server, the one that I'm using, does not have that yet, right? I don't have that version because we're still working on that feature to include the filter. But what I did is I built one where I'm splitting the records, right, for the demo purposes. So if we look at the properties, load options, right? I'm selecting my target database, right? The one that I want to select the connection for the database for that adapter. I assign the table name, what type of load types I want to use, the type of load I want to use, and another feature, I mean, another thing is going to be here is the validation, right? So where you could select how you want to validate on which column, and so the column will be tag category, and what you want to do, for example, for valid and cleansed, you want to make sure those go to one table, and the ones that are invalid or the ones that are invalid goes to a different table. So, and I done this, but I done it manually. But if we run this, um, so we saw this. So now if I'll switch back,
Steven,
yes,
to get to where you were on the data flow, that's all part of the data migrator. Is that
yes,
correct? And the cleansing rules that you had, those are pre-set up that we ship. Is that correct?
yes, they are part of the queue, right? They part of the queue. So when we communicate with the data quality tool, we get the list of and we get the list of all the rules that they're available there, and we provide them in a list, and you can select them.
Got it.
If you want to, as I said, all those rules written in Python, you can add to that library of rules your own rules, and we would be able to use them and you would be able to use them within the data migrator.
So it's not directly part of the server or data migrator, but it is part of the DQ that we will access when we need to.
Yes,
Got it.
that's the point of integration, right? we integrated the DQ, which does the cleansing, data cleansing, and data migrator does the movement of the data. So we integrated them. So now you have one tool, one interface to apply your data movement, and while you're moving the data, you can cleanse the data on within that flow.
Very nice. Thank you.
Okay, so let's run this job. Let's submit it. The job got submitted. So we're going to come back here and we're going to say view as log. And we'll see all the communication. We'll see there's a multiple calls that done during this execution process. The calls are back. It's a bidirectional calls between the data migrator and DQ, where we send the file with the fields that have to be cleansed to the DQ. They get cleansed. We don't send the whole data. We just send those counts that you applied the rules to. We send them in one file, not record by record, right? We send them in one file and you see it, right? So it tells you the 1,000 records read, 1,000 records processed, because my file has 1,000 records, my sample data, the one that I'm working with. First we do the DQ analyzes the data. It responds to us, tells us that, yeah, and analyze that. What do you want to do next? So we send them the JSON file with the mappings and all that stuff. So it's a process. So at the end we get the response, and the response is that 826 records read, got written into the table where all the records are. All the records are valid or cleansed, and 174 records, and we'll see that number here. 174 records got written into the second table. So if we go back to our target table and we do sample data here, and you don't have to move that target, I mean category, tag category column, but in this demo I did move, right? And if you look at the records, they are valid, or I mean, if you look at the columns, the value for the columns for each record, you'll see that if the record got moved, I mean cleansed, or the record was valid, had a valid value in the column, and okay, so and then the second one, let's look at the second table where we loaded invalid data. And we'll see that one of the columns has invalid data in a record, right? So let's look at the first record for James Carter, right? So his primary email was valid, secondary email was valid, the primary phone was invalid because it has extension, and that rule does not handle extensions, right? And the fourth column, which is work phone number, was cleansed. So it was the phone number was put in the right format that is expected. Okay, this is the demo that I want to show you. And if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Walter, do we have any questions?
No questions so far.
And this, since we're doing REST calls, and we're using REST API to access, to communicate to DQ, and reporting server can run on MVS, so the whole application, all this integration can run on MVS. The DQ, I mean, does not have to run on MVS, but yeah. So it could be on your network, as I said, and as long as they can communicate with each other, you can use them together, both of these tools. And they come as one package, right? When you get your subscription for the tools, both of these tools come in the package.
Nice, thanks to you. And it's especially important nowadays to do data cleansing, well, especially when things start moving more to AI. Because
Yes,
if
so
AI
we're
doesn't have good data, then
yeah, you cannot get the proper analysis of the data and all that stuff. So proper analytics. So yeah, in AI, we are living in AI age, right? So all your data has to be cleansed, formatted properly, and moved to your warehouses, and then you can do analyze your data and get the proper reports and all that stuff.
cool. All right, any questions for Stephen? You're all so quiet today. All right, Ken, you're up.
All right. Okay, I think my screen is visible. All right. So,
Yeah.
hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining Focus Friday today. So it's great to see a mix of new names and familiar names on the session today. So for those who I haven't met yet, my name is Ken. I am the product manager for WebFOCUS Designer. And today we're going to explore a feature in Designer that kind of separates basic reporting from application development using unbound controls. So although unbound control is not a new feature to Designer, but we did enhance this feature in 937. So if you did join me on April's VUG, I did go over this slide there, but I'll go over it, well, we'll go over it quickly here as well, just so that you have an idea of what these unbound controls are. So for for this, let's take a look at the usability update, because that's what we did for designer assemble pages. So in previous releases, when you added an unbound control, let's start from that from the beginning there. So in designer, in the assemble pages, you have the option of adding filters that were generated from your reports. If not, then we also have the option to also give you to add unbound controls, just controls the control option on the sidebar that you can just drag onto the canvas and use them as you see fit onto your application. But here in previous releases, what we did was when you added an unbound control to the filter toolbar or even on the canvas, and you populated it with data, whether it had data was static or dynamic, what the control did was often will just have a generic no values display in the placeholder. So from like an end user perspective, this is very confusing because it kind of signaled that the filter was broken or there's just no data to select, even if there was data in there. The only way you knew is if you went into and opened it, in this case, expanded a dropdown. So in 937, what we introduced was a default value and a displays text customization. So here, where you have the ability to kind of set a specific default value or customize the display text when show all is enabled. And should be fairly familiar for those that have used App Studio before. Whenever we had it a control, you had the option to say select all. And with the select all, you can change that message from all to whatever you wanted, really, just to grab the user's attention. So instead of the seeing like the no values placeholder, you can now kind of provide like a little more intuitive placeholder. So in this case, such as like, select the region or all years, this kind of gives your users, more clear visual cue that the control is active and kind of ready for some sort of interaction. So this update here that we have for 937 kind of removes that broken feel and empty looking filters and kind of ensures that your dashboard is, looks more finished and professional from the moment that your page loads. So you may ask, what is an unbound control? So in simple terms, an Unbound control is just a UI element. So like a button, a drop down, or checkbox that kind of just sits on a page, but isn't really, married to any data source versus your filter controls where anything that you put on there is kind of automatically linked and you can filter as you normally do on the page. So these unbound controls, they kind of act like free agents or or functional triggers that kind of allows your developers to like define some sort of custom logic through interactions rather than kind of automatic filtering. But you might ask, why use these unbound controls? So these unbound controls are kind of essential for transforming, your static dashboard into a more dynamic, more interactive web application. So because they're not hard-coded to data, you can actually use them as like switches or triggers to kind of control that experience. So in a sense here, for example, uh, you can use a radio button or a drop down to kind of show or hide specific panels on a page or use it to change a visual theme. So with interactions, you can use buttons or other inputs to kind of drive the interactions panel. This kind of allows you to kind of configure like a no code action, right? We have with the interactions currently, what you can do is kind of force things to run onto your page on a specific container if you have one and then or refresh or load. Very similar to if you're familiar with making HTML pages on App Studio, this is very similar concept with the tests and animations. In Designer, we call them interactions. So with the toggling visibility, like showing or hiding an object when it loads, or even just hiding it while you're on the page. So, but you're not just limited to like simple triggers. You can actually add more complexity to your page by adding your own custom JavaScript functions to kind of further enhance that functionality. So here, kind of created a chart that kind of just shows like what is the primary purpose between the unbound versus unbound control. So as you can see, like the primary purpose for a bound control is kind of more for data filtering and selection, whereas the unbound control kind of applies to like your logic, your UI triggers, and bound controls are kind of tied to your metadata, right? So that's what we're used to seeing. We're kind of used to seeing when you create an assembled page, you drag your effects on there, you have the button to kind of like, okay, here's to add the filter. So I click that, I'll add the filters to the page. And that's bounded to your effects. So unbound controls are not. There's no data link to it. That's, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of just like your standard control where you kind of like, okay, what do we do with this unbound control? What kind of logic can we apply to this? So as I mentioned earlier, you can select data and it filters your report. And with the unbound control, you kind of control its action. As for the configuration, for assemble pages, we have the quick filter option. So that's where I mentioned on the sidebar where you drag your effects onto your canvas and you click the add filters. And it creates all the filters. You can convert them to however you please based on your page. And for Unbound, we kind of just use interactions panels to control it. So with that said, I do have a demo to show you what I've done and just to show you different types of ways that you can implement it, whether it's a simple hiding your containers and using JavaScript to kind of control this as well. And yeah, you know what? Let's dive into that. But before that, I do have a slide like what Walter mentioned. We do have Summit coming up in August for the 25th, and it's a 2-day, 24th and 25th. So I do hope to see you guys there. All right. So for this is your simple assemble page. I didn't do anything too crazy here. It's just what we have. We use our handy dandy sample data with using retails. So we just have charts that we have created here as well as just extra charts that we have. Nothing too crazy. So here on your left here, these are your bound controls. This is what we're using to control what you guys are used to seeing, that you'll control your charts or reports. In this case, I've only put charts here. So that's what we're looking at today. So of course we have a submit button so that these won't run until you click submit. And of course you can go down there and add whatever you like to see, your region and story type. Let's just keep it as all, submit. That will run your request through the FXs that has these same parameters that you have set in your FXs. So resetting puts the same thing, it does that. So what do we do with unbound controls? So here in this one here, this is an unbound dropdown. So what you can do with these is like, let's say, for instance, in your dashboard, you wanted users to see certain bank statements. So what we can do is actually set them up to say, hey, this is the part of that feature that we had it in 97. We can set this placeholder. I set it as select the bank statements. It kind of tells the user to come here, select one, open this, and select one of these. So these are AI generated. These are not real. We use AI to kind of just generate these. So if you want to see it, you can expand it. You kind of could see for January. And if you want, you could set it to also some sort of statement. It doesn't have to be statements. It could be another report. It could be a PDF report, any content that you have in your workspace that you can kind of set here. But what you have to do is add conditions to these. You can't just say, hey, let's run these into this dropdown and that's it. We actually have to set a condition to say, hey, take a look at this. If it equals to, let's say in this case, January, run the January statement. If it equals to March, run the March statement. Right. So moving on here, I mentioned that we could have toggles as triggers. So I use the checkbox here, but you can use any of the other unbound controls that we have. So basically what we have for the interaction panel is, if I click this, it hides this for me, right? But I wanted to ask if you guys noticed something that I did here. So here in this, I use JavaScript to say, if I hide it, now to change this text to say show. So with unbound controls and with JavaScript, and you can do these type of things. So here, hide, if I show it, if I click it and it shows it, and it changes back to the, I guess, the condition to say hide again. So if I hide it, say show, click it to show. So these are things that you can do. As well as, let's say if I wanted to change the theme. So with this one is a little tricky because it's not really changing a theme. What we're doing is replacing the style sheet in WebFOCUS. So these are our general style sheet that we have. We have our design 2018, we have light, we have midnight. So what I did was we used JavaScript to kind of hook these up to this unbound radio control to say, hey, if I left it as designer, it will show the designer theme. If I click light, not much of a difference, but slight difference from, some of the borders here. And if I go to midnight. So we're changing these themes and replacing them as we go. But depending on how your page is, you can also use a button set. I hooked the same thing. I wrote the same JavaScript. The only difference I did was I created a new interaction with this unbound button set and to change the theme for these. Right? So, and the last thing I wanted to show you here was here it says enter effects name. So what I did here for input controls doesn't have these options for, let's say, changing the placeholder. So what I did here was use JavaScript to kind of update and manually force that placeholder to say, hey, enter effects name. So what this does here is the way we hard coded it. It's hard coded. It's not dynamic. So it depends on how you code it here and how your JavaScript is written. But in this case, this was hard coded. So what effects is that it runs here is in this particular path here that I have. It goes to this small widgets folder. So let's say if I wanted to enter category sales, you have to enter the name that's exactly what it's called because that's the name of the effects. So case does matter here. So in this case, I'll say like something like this. Category sales and press enter. And that will run that effects over into a new window. So I set it to run it as a new window. I didn't put it to a container. So this would go to, run a new window. So this will go to any effects that you have here. So just be in mind that when you run this type of JavaScript, it does depend on how you write it. In this case, again, it is hard coded for this particular workspace. So if you want it more dynamic, you'll have to kind of mess with the JavaScript and say, hey, if I go to here, run this one if it's available. But in this case, it only runs anything that I put in here. So if I wanted to run, let's say, revenue region bar. So let's go back to this one. Revenue region bar. Press enter, and this should run this report as well. Okay, so let me show you the behind the scenes and just walk you through how I created it here. So this is your assemble page. Those that are familiar with Designer, you'll know that any of the controls that we have here, you have your containers, you have your controls. All I did was I also just put the left position for these because it looks a little cleaner in a sense instead of having it up here. So it depends on your preference on how you decide to build your page. But in this case is more, I felt it was just cleaner to have it here. Okay. So for interaction panel is this icon here that's denoted by like this little lightning icon. So I renamed all of these to show what it does. So I know it's a little weird. Right here it says empty. That's also because I hid the naming of this dropdown instead of saying it dropdown one or I guess in a sense I didn't want to repeat what it does. So like here, right here, it says enter effects name, and then my placeholder value at runtime was enter effects name. I didn't want that. But this is what what I was mentioning earlier, where this input box, the default value was, well, the default placeholder was no values, and I didn't want that because that doesn't tell a user that it's expecting some sort of interaction. So I use JavaScript to say, hey, update this to whatever value I put. So so for the statements where I went over where it says to, select one of these, what you had to do is you had to create a task for each of these elements that you're running. In this case, there's only just two because I'm only running these two statements. But if you had more reports that you wanted to run, this is where you would put it. So what you have to do is you go into here, you go to your settings, you open the control source, and you add your static values. So again, these could be more values, as many as you need. Here's just two. So my value is January and March. This is what I'm displaying in the dropdown. So when I create this interaction, what I'm doing is saying, run this content in this container that called bank statements content. So, but how does it know to kind of go there? So you have to right click here, add a condition. What that does is opens this little dialog here. You want to select a control. So in this case, I know it's empty, so it's a little confusing, but since I created, I know which one is which one. So this is that first one that I selected. So once you select it, it'll ask you whether your operator, whether you're equals to so-and-so. But this time we want it to be equals, right? We want it to say equals to January 2026. And then you click OK. So this will kind of give that condition to say, run this task if it's equal to January. Run this task if it's equal to March. So now when you run this page, what you get is this, right? It switch between the two. Do we have any questions so far?
Nope, no questions so far.
Oh, okay, good. All right. So moving on. So for high details. So here it was a simple thing. All I did was if it was equal to, if I selected it, if it was equal to check marks, then hide the object. I hit this container here. And if it's not equal to this, then show it. Simple as turning on and off, toggle on and off. That's what we did here. So what I did, but to change this, I guess the label here is from high details to show details. What would I do? Would use JavaScript to kind of control that. So before I show the JavaScript, I want to just go through the rest of these interactions and I'll show the JavaScript what I did as well. So that was simple enough. It's kind of just all I did was one checkbox or any of these controls that you want to use to hide a detail. You can also do it with a dropdown, but to me, it made more sense with a checkbox. Right, so I see here, and then moving on, so radio theme or button set theme. So the radio theme, obviously this one, button set is this one. So these were controlled by JavaScript. So same concept as selecting the statement. All I did was say, hey, if I made a selection here, run this JavaScript function. So I have 3 different functions here for each different theme that we have that's currently available in the global resources. So you can also point this to your own custom theme if you like. So here is just same thing. Like I said, I know it's empty. Well, actually, this one is not empty. This one says theme, so I picked this one, theme. So if it's equal to designer, run the designer one. Designer function, if it equals to light, run the light function. If it equals to midnight, run the midnight. And this is the same for the button set. And for the effects input, this input box here, what I did was very similar to the other ones where I just executed a JavaScript function. Like, hey, is there some sort of selection change where there is I believe like an enter or most likely an enter or a click that kind of just like, hey, run this JavaScript. Okay. So let me show you that code that we used. So not too much and also not too crazy, right? It looks fairly simple as it is. All we're doing here for setting my theme is kind of like say, hey, if it's set to midnight, this is my function. Run this path, well, run this function here, and then run the path of the style sheet that I'm trying to go for. So yes, the global resources does say theme.css, but what you have to do is put the path of the full path. So here is the for midnight, here's for light, and this is the default, which is the designer 2018. So all we're doing here is just pointing it to the CSS page. But what it's doing is not really switching. It's not like you're switching from a light and dark theme. It's sort of, what we're doing is actually removing the style sheet that we have on there and replacing it with the new one that we set with using JavaScript here. So it's not really like switching back and forth. What it's doing is removing the old one, adding the new one. So that's what I did for both the radio button as well as the button set. And this is for the hide and show. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, is your simple if else. If it's checked, let it say show. If it's not, then say hide. So this is what we did to kind of control that uh, output. So we want, that's why I wanted to kind of emphasize that this is very robust and also you can do whatever you can. And it's not just the simple thing that we have in our interactions panel that you could just simple hide and show or run a content. You can use JavaScript to manipulate all these things as well. So here it's, if I click it and it's enabled, it hides the content, but also runs this JavaScript function so that it changes that label text from hide to show. And if I click show, it'll change it back to hide. All right, so this part is where we put the input, running the fix that's in that current workspace. So it is hard coded. That's what I mentioned earlier, right? This is the URL that we get from the request. And then all I did was, if I can move it back, to put this fix name here. So anything that I put here will update depending if it's available or not. So obviously, if I put something doesn't exist in the workspace, then it will just come back as it does not exist. It doesn't, and that's the normal message that you would see anyway. So it does depend on how you hard code this. In this case, again, it's just hard coded to this particular workspace, as well as updating the placeholder. So the placeholder was something that I didn't like to see. I didn't want to see no values, right? And nobody wants to see that. Like I mentioned earlier, where it just tells somebody that it doesn't belong there. We have nothing there, so why click it? So I use JavaScript to kind of force it, like, hey, I don't want that. Let's do enter fx name, but I want it to run at runtime so that it updates while I run the page. So here we have I believe this function here, uh, filter panel loaded. I believe it's available in Designer already. You just have to put the right function here. So once the page loads, run this function, update my placeholder. Okay. And then with that, again, with Unbound Controls, you can do more JavaScript things and more interaction. It doesn't have to be running a JavaScript, which I have shown here. You can actually use any of the other options that we have depending on the type. So if you have your drop down here, you can change this to something else, or you could have it to a button. So if it clicks, opens this, or clicks to hide this, and things like that. So the amount of things that you can do is endless. It's just up to you whether, how you want to implement it in your dashboard. Okay. And that is all from me today. And I'll just wait to see if there's any questions regarding Unbound Controls, and I'll try to address them as they come in.
Thanks, Ken. So far, nothing. But yeah, we'll give him a minute.
Sure.
They must still be sleepy. They didn't have enough coffee.
All right, cool. But if you have any questions, just type it in. I'll try to answer them as we go on.
All right, so thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Ken. That kind of concludes the standard part of the session. We're going to go into the mainframe only part. So if you are not running on the mainframe, you can feel free to drop. When you drop, there will be an evaluation pop-up. So if you could fill out the evaluation, we do review all of them. There is a question.
Yep, I was typing it as you were talking, so I'll answer it in the Q&A.
Yeah, but other people might want to.
Okay. All right. So the question here is, in the enter text name field, can you add a drop-down selection? So in that sense, what we did was I used the input control. So with the input control, we don't have that option to kind of have like a drop down. So if you wanted to use a drop down, I would use the drop down selection, what I use for the select bank statement. But entering FX name, because it's a drop down, is not, you can't enter anything. So it would just be your regular drop down control.
But what you could probably do is have a radio button that says enter effects name, or the other options for the radio button would be to select from a list on the dropdown.
Yeah, you can. You can use interactions to do that as well as JavaScript. Just depends on how you want to put it in your application.
Not bad for a mainframe guy. All right. Again, you don't have to stay if you don't want to. Glad everybody showed up. Hope to see you again next month. Hope to see you in person in August. Note, in August, there will not be a Focus Friday because we have the in-person summit. So just keep that in mind. Margaret, you're welcome. Zeke, everyone, again, thanks for coming. All right. As you go, fill out the evaluation, and let me share my screen, and we'll get on with the. Let's see. You already answered, right? So we'll do.
Yes.
Oh, it says looks like you're typing, so I'll let you close that one.
Oh, cancel. Okay. Answer live.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So we're moving into the mainframe part of the show. I'm going to talk about APF authorization, zIIP, and TSO authorization for our products. Actually, this applies to any product. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Go back here. Here we go. So we encourage everybody to upgrade if you're running older versions of Focus. And one of the reasons we ask you to upgrade is so you can take advantage of the zIIP processor. The zIIP processor we'll see is a specialty engine that IBM offers, and it offloads work that your general processor would be doing and you would be charged for by IBM. So the more you can offload to the specialty engine, the less your bill should be. So why are we talking about this? So a while back, we had a customer that was upgrading, and they were running some queries, and they noticed that they were getting messages that said zIIP would not be activated because you were not running APF authorized. But it only happened in one of their environments. So it was a little confusing. So I'm like, let me just do a session on Focus Friday to talk about what all the rules are. So let's just jump in and start with the APF authorization. So the APF authorization is a state, basically, when you're running a job, so that if you're running APF authorized, it means you have the ability of running at a higher authorization level than just a standard job. You cannot call a non-standardized program if you're running APF authorized. So you have to make sure that your environments stay consistent across what you're running. So to check to see if you're running APF authorized, the module, the load module that you're running has to have the AC flag set to 1, which says it has been link edited so that it can take advantage of running as APF authorized. And in addition, the library that that module is in also has to be set that it's APF authorized. So this is something that your systems, your IBM systems person would do. And there's a member, usually in Sys1 ParmLive, whatever your ParmLive name is, and it's PROGXX. You could have several of them, hence the XX. And then when your system is IPL, then it points to the one that's being used at that point in time. So there's the PROG, and then there's the IEF APF members within ParmLive, where you would have entries to say that this is an APF authorized library. All right, so that's the two roles. You have to be, you have your data set, your library has to be in the authorization table, and the AC1 flag has to be set. If those two aren't happening, you're not running APF authorized, and you can't take advantage of that. All right, so this slide basically talks about what the zIIP engine is. It's generally faster than your normal general processors. And usually this work isn't being charged for by IBM because it's offloaded. It frees up your general processors for doing other work. So overall, it's a good thing to take advantage of. The only problem from a focus point of view or WebFOCUS point of view on the mainframe is you only really get a benefit if you're doing a lot of CPU type calculations. If you're doing a lot of I/O, then you're not going to see much of a difference if you offload to the zIIP, because we're not going to take advantage of the zIIP in I/O. But if you have a lot of computes, a lot of defines, those kind of things, then that's all CPU heavy type calculations, then you would definitely see a benefit. In the newer versions, we actually offload a lot of data into memory. So instead of doing a physical I/O, we're reading and writing from memory, which then also gives us a better ability to go ahead and take advantage of the zIIP. So Lori, good to see you. The processor is a one-time charge, and then anything running on it is not charged by IBM. You can now buy as many as you need. Thank you. Good to know. So this just kind of talks about I guess a good day. If you can offload your work and do 70% on the zIIP engine, then you free up your CP, and it can do other things. And you're only paying, as Lori said, that one-time fee. Okay, by leveraging specialty engines, you might be able to see a 40% cost reduction. Again, that's all dependent on exactly what you're doing. If you're just doing, I'm reading a file and writing to another file, you might not see exactly the 40%. So, but your mileage may vary. So in general, that's how zIIP and APF go hand in hand. But now let's talk about TSO, because the same customer had an environment where they were running TSO on one LPAR, and they were taking advantage of zIIP, but the same focus environment on a different LPAR was not. So let's jump into that. So TSO itself is set to run not authorized. So that's the main thing going on here. TSO by itself is not APF authorized, but it gives you the ability of raising the authorization level artificially for certain commands, programs, and service facilities. So the auth command says, I want to run this particular TSO command as authorized. Auth program says, I want to run this particular program as APF authorized. And I want to run, I've never seen the auth TSF, but it's for calling the service. So normally when you call TSO, it's an IJKEFTOO. But if you're running any other TSO services, you might have to set those also. Normally, we just tell you to do off command, off program. I think in this customer's case, they, in the environment that was running and taking advantage of zip, they only had off BGN set in their TSO environment. So even though you set these, if you set these items, you still have to follow the other two rules. The AC flag has to be set at 1, and the library has to be APF authorized. This chart just shows if you're doing a standard user task, do you need APF authorization? Probably not. Is it zip eligible? Well, no, because you're not running APF authorized, and which is the primary processor. If you're running in batch and you want to take advantage of zip, then yes, it has to be authorized. Notice it says zip eligible. Just because you set zip on doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to use it. There's a whole other part in the IBM batch world called the workload manager. And the workload manager has rules set up to say, if these situations happen, then I want you to take advantage of the zip. If there's not enough zip engines, do I want you to wait until something becomes available and then take advantage of it, or do you want to just not use it at all? So the workload manager is on top of all this, which might interfere with if you're actually using the zip processor or not. Unfortunately, at that point, we don't know about it. We just know how we're interacting with the zip engine. So you might run a job and seeing your JES log saying that zip was turned off, and that's because we were going too many times back and forth between working with zip and not working with zip. Because at a certain time, there's a trade-off, and even though you're taking advantage of zip, you're not getting any benefit because things are taking longer. Mr. Blood, focus or Xfocus file access is done at the track level. Will also make use of zip as the focus is loading the track into memory and then managing data access. So yes, so as long as we load the data wherever it's coming from, and for those of you in the Focus 9 version, we do a lot of the sorting now internally, and we will load everything into memory. And there's a new setting, which I can't remember now exactly what it is, but you actually specify how much of your memory are you going to use to load data. And it's normally defaulted to large, but you could also set it to small. And this is because the more we load into memory, then the more we have a better chance of accessing the zip engine. Thanks, Mr. Blood. All right, any questions? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, and here's the good old IBI Summit. Again, we'd like to see you there. Get out of here. So on the mainframe, I'm just going to show you some of these things that we just talked about. We'll use this one. So this is the Focus load library, and this is for 937. And if I look in here for the Focus module, you'll see that the AC flag is set to 1. So Focus is eligible for running as APF authorized and taking advantage of zip. Notice we have this Focus DLL, which is a DLL callable version of the Focus module. We have Focus IMS, which is called from the IMS module DFRC S00. And it calls us. Now, in itself, that module is not APF authorized because it doesn't have the AC flag set. So our Focus IMS module also doesn't have the AC flag set because you can't call an APF authorized module into from a non-authorized environment. This Focus NA, we shipped this out. It's basically just the Focus module. And if you see, the size is exactly the same, but without the AC flag set. And that was because if you didn't have Focus set with the off commands and you wanted to run it in TSO, then you should run the Focus NA module because then we know that you're in a non-APF authorized environment and you need to call the non-APF authorized version of Focus. Is there any customization needed to enable Focus to use the zips, or is it automatic? As long as you or your systems person puts it into the table, the PROGXX, to say that your library is APF authorizable, then that's all you really need to do. And then inside of Focus, in your Foc Parm or in your Foc Prof, you say set zip equals on. And that's it. Everything else is already there. So you just need to turn it on and make sure that you have everything set for the rules for APF authorization. We already have the AC1 flag set for you, so you just need to make sure that it's in your authorization table. So speaking of the authorization table, let's see if this even comes up, because I'm not even sure which ones are being used at this point. I have an APF library already set, and of course it's not in here. And that's because we have a different, again, this is normally it's just one parm but it can be any name. Okay, another way to find out if your data set is APF authorized or not is you can come into TSO, do a DT list, type in APF, and it shows you the APF list. So all of these data sets are identified as being APF authorized. So now if I do find here they are. Eight. There it is. So the fact that it's in the APF authorization list in the PROG and the proper arm line and the AC flag is set to 1, when you run Focus from this library, it will then be able to take advantage of the APF authorization. Also, if I go into the give me 1 second. So this is a C list to start Focus. I'm doing that BF9300. Change that. Okay, let's not do that. If I do a question mark rel command, it will tell me if I'm running authorized or not. And lastly, what was I going to look at? If you're running WebFOCUS or Focus Studio, in your iRun JCL or your FRun JCL, all of your data sets that are allocated to StepLive also need to be APF authorized. So if any one of them isn't, then that will turn off authorization and Focus or WebFOCUS will then run as non-APF authorized. So you will not be able to take advantage of it. So in this case, my StepLive only has my f.home.load, which is authorized. And then everything else that I'm going to access, like all of my adapters, I have allocated under TaskLive. Because then if those aren't APF authorized, it's not going to stop the system from letting Focus run APF authorized. All right, any questions on zIIP, APF authorization, or TSO in regards to zIIP and APF authorization? All right, let me stop sharing. All right, if there's no other questions, again, thanks everyone for coming. I hope you were able to pick something up. Hope we'll see you hopefully in June, and hopefully we'll see you in person in August. Thanks for coming and enjoy the rest of the month.